me away. I don't wanna be here. Take me away. Festival coming up.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Unknown Destination, the podcast about anything and everything travel. We apologize that it's been a couple weeks, but we are back. We are ready to go. It is Father's Day. So, Andrew, happy Father's Day.
Thank you. Happy Father's Day to you as well, sir.
I appreciate it. And to all the fathers out there, how have you been these past few weeks?
I've been doing wonderful, actually. Work's been pretty steady. Just enjoying the weather mostly. I don't know about yourself.
Yeah, I mean, same thing. Took a little bit of a road trip, went to 3 different cities. It was mostly fun. There was one city that was horrible, but we'll talk about that on another episode or something.
Yeah, I look forward to hearing about your trip.
All right.
But we can jump into some news. I think since we're backlogged a little bit. Unfortunately, a lot of the news that we had is no longer valid, which is, I guess, a good and a bad thing, because most of the news that we've got is obviously coming up on the positive end of the spectrum, with things opening back up and people able to travel safe again.
Yeah, I would agree that everything is positive, but I want to start it off with something a little bit negative, but not that bad, just because that's what I like to do. I like to start in a dark place and then make things get brighter.
Wow. All right.
So the first article I have is actually from this past Tuesday at the Atlanta airport. 2 Delta airplanes that were preparing for takeoff. One was Delta Flight 1231 to Pensacola, and the other was Delta Flight 823 to LAX. They were taxiing to the runway when they clipped wings.
Oh, so I'm assuming that both of them were grounded and they did not take off later.
Yeah, that's a pretty safe assumption. It took place around 10 p.m. So these were red-eye flights, and that obviously kind of sucks that they were delayed, especially the flight going back to Atlanta.
Oh God, yeah, that's so they're waiting until the next morning.
Yeah, so they did confirm that there were no customer, flight crew, or ground crew injuries. The problem was to staff the flight to Los Angeles on a different plane. They didn't have the staff available, therefore the flight was delayed overnight.
Oh wow. Yeah, that's surprising, because I know that we've talked previously just about Delta, and they've usually got proper staffing everywhere. That's why they've got the best on time out of all the at least American carriers or North American carriers.
I guess this time it just wasn't the case, and I think there's a lot of airlines having staffing issues, and I was going to let you go to an article, but since that came up, my other airline article is actually kind of directly related, and that is about American Airlines canceling hundreds of flights because of staffing and maintenance issues.
Yeah, that's actually something that I was going to bring up as well. Just I found this comical, just because of we've kind of, those of us that have been in the industry for a while have seen the problem looming on the horizon of piloting and staffing issues that were very kind of foreseen for a while, and not really much done about it, unfortunately. And now American is kind of the first large airline to really be suffering from this. It looks like they've been canceled about 5 times as many flights as United and Delta combined.
That's crazy. And just to put those numbers kind of into perspective, for these numbers are for this weekend, the weekend of June 20th, 2021. 123 flights were canceled Saturday, 178 for Sunday. 97 have already been canceled for Monday. And that was directly as a result of the high number of sick call-offs from their staff. And then on top of that, they're expecting to continue canceling about 50 to 60 flights per day for the rest of June, and 50 to 80 flights per day through the end of July.
Yeah, I saw that they had there was a pilot that was interviewed, and he basically went on record saying we're incredibly short-staffed. And usually people don't like to say those kind of things on the record, just because it just looks like you're bitching about your job. But they actually have came out and said that they don't have enough 737 pilots for the current schedule. So these cancellations are just going to keep happening. And actually, I can kind of touch on this from my shift today at work. I had a few people that were trying to change flights, and they were flying on American. And what I've noticed is American is canceling the very first flight out in the morning if they don't that are flying on 737s. So if you're on a first flight out, you may be getting bumped to a later flight. And all of these flights are sold out just because there aren't enough pilots. So keep that in mind if you're going to be traveling.
Yeah, on top of that, there's also actually a shortage with American of A320 pilots. So you're talking about two of a large portion of their aircraft. The reason that that shortage was really caused was during the pandemic. Obviously, there were a lot of layoffs, but there were also a ton of pilots who were offered early retirement. And
And they took it.
honestly, there's not a large amount of millennials or Gen Zers who have pursued being pilots. So because of that, there's just a shortage of people that know how to fly these aircraft. So if that's something you're interested in and you've always wanted to go be a pilot, now's the time to look into these flight schools and things and learn how, because there's jobs.
Yeah, I would honestly even recommend reaching out to the airlines. I bet
Yeah.
I would be very surprised if the airlines didn't have something in place to either pay your way through it if you're going to sign a contract with that airline. I know Delta did that in the past, which is probably why they're not really having those staffing issues at the moment.
Right.
They had their own kind of flight school that they partnered with, and as long as you signed a so many year contract, basically so that they could get their money back from paying for this schooling for you, you basically had a job. So, and they make good money. Pilots make very good money.
Oh yeah. And I think it's interesting that you mentioned Delta, because we're always very positive about Delta here for the most part. Obviously, they do have their issues. They've had their issues with, I believe they also actually reached out to ask people to volunteer in their lounges in airports recently.
Yeah.
And it seems like all the major carriers have done that. But the wait time over this past weekend to talk to a reservation agent with Delta Airlines was over 21 hours.
Yeah. And I
So
can also speak to that because I worked all weekend.
Yeah.
So even with if you're going through an agent, yeah, we say, you always get those perks by going through an agent instead of doing it yourself. This is a prime example of that. If I don't know very many people that have 21 hours to wait if they're calling an airline. Normally those things are pretty urgent if you're calling the airline for it. For some perspective, I was on hold for almost 2 hours with Delta, and I have not sat on hold for years. For probably, I don't know, having corporate accounts, I could usually get through to Delta instantly. There was no hold. So
yeah, we generally have different numbers we can use that get you through immediately. So a 2 hour wait for a professional that they have a contract with that they don't want to lose, compared to a 21-hour wait, still worth using an agent, but it's crazy times either way. So obviously, again, if you're in the travel industry and you were laid off over this past year and you want to get back into travel, there are jobs available. I'm starting a new job in a week here, finally getting back into the industry myself. So that's a positive thing. And something else in addition to that is actually TSA. They are currently looking to hire 6,000 new officers to handle the current travel boost. They are offering different incentives. The first one is that they are offering a $1,000 hiring bonus to anyone who accepts employment.
Yeah, and to even touch on like the pay a little bit further, there was apparently with American, they're basically offering premium pay for just doing your normal job for crew scheduling because they're so short staffed that the people are being essentially paid 150% of their hourly rate all in addition to the monthly guarantee that they sign up with their contract. So it's very easy. They have an app that allows them to request trips at premium pay on their off days because of how short staffed they are.
That's insane. And just to be clear, the travel industry is a relatively decent paying industry. I mean, you're going to make more than you are in your average customer service job. So definitely check it out if you're looking into it. But it's a problem now. Staffing is a problem throughout the industry, especially in hotels that aren't paying as well.
Right.
I know it's a big deal, at least here in St. Louis. Some of the hotel companies have raised their pay $2 an hour just to get more employees coming in. And that's the first significant increase we've seen from what were close to minimum wage jobs in the hospitality industry in decades.
Yeah. And a lot of it is due to people not really wanting to go back to a job that is paying them a not living wage. Exactly. People, at least a lot of people were very smart with how they have saved their money during the pandemic and, living, with the extra boost that was given to them. Maybe that's part of their plan to going back to school. Who knows? There's a different plan for everybody that was going through this. So
Yeah. So I think I'm going to shock you.
I'm ready.
And the reason is because we are always very positive around here about Delta and
Mhm.
very negative about United. Well, there's some positive news, or at least I think it's positive news coming from United Airlines, and it's about an aircraft order that they recently made.
I'll be the judge of that.
So United Airlines actually placed an order for 15 supersonic jets,
Oh,
basically equivalent to the Concorde that would, cause us to be able to fly overseas quickly. The flight that they're looking at is from Newark, New Jersey to London or San Francisco to Tokyo. Both of those would be about 3.5 hour flights, and the price point would be $5,000 to $7,000, which is actually about half the price of a current first class ticket to those destinations at your normal flight time.
mhm.
So they ordered these from Boom Airlines, which is based in Denver. Unfortunately, the bad thing is they don't think they'll have these aircraft in hand until 2029.
Yeah.
So it's going to take a while, but they're expecting by the end of the decade to have supersonic flights back in operation. And that's something we haven't seen since the Concorde. So that's definitely positive if it can
Yeah.
actually happen.
Yeah, I saw that. I actually had read that as well. Maybe a couple weeks ago, I think, or maybe a week or two ago, that Boom had just got a there was a patent pending. So while that's pending, that people are kind of making those purchases, like pre-purchases for it. But yeah, definitely going to be a long time, especially if I'm assuming they're probably going to be affected by the chip shortage, the global chip shortage that is being experienced,
Yeah.
kind of. So yeah, I'm excited for it though. I know that I always wanted to fly on a Concorde, but
Same.
and then I read about how terrible they are for the environment, and I think that is probably what would hold this up further or speed it up, depending on kind of the emissions that are going to be driven because of this new line.
Right on. Yeah, I agree. That's all I have for airlines. What do you got?
Yeah, just one more quick thing with since I'm already trashing American, I thought we would keep on that trend of you know what, this actually isn't even trashing American. It's just hilarious to me because it happened on an American flight. There's been a controversy in the travel world for a while about if airlines should serve alcohol.
I wondered if this was going to come up.
And this has been a year. You know, this has been going on for years, arguing back and forth and saying, you know, people are get drunk too easily when they're, you know, 20,000 feet up, and then it causes other issues. And this is just kind of funny to me because if you're one of the people that don't think you should be able to serve on an airplane, then you probably shouldn't be serving in an airport. So this article that I had here was there was a man that was booked in first class, that he was watching another man board who was stumbling all over, very clearly intoxicated. I guess the man went all the way to the back of coach into the lavatory and threw up. So then American came out and was escorting him off of the plane because they were clearly like, you know, this is not going to happen. And then he's being escorted off the plane, and the man that's in first class gets thrown up on by this guy while he's being escorted off the plane.
So we've had conversations about you being drunk at hotels and stuff, and I just want to know why you were flying American.
Oh no, this isn't from me. Oh good lord. Oh, this isn't me, I swear. First off, I wouldn't unless they wanted to sponsor me, and then I would sell out. But actually, I don't even think I would. I really try to fly Delta unless the routing is just doesn't make sense. But yeah, no. So it's bad. They've got pictures. This guy, he said he noticed he had a weird walk when they were still at the gate, and they still let him on. Vomited all over the guy that was in first class. Luckily, the guy in first class had a change of clothes, but he said that this is absolute proof that it isn't serving alcohol on planes that's the problem. He was wasted long before he got on this plane. So
I mean, that's a fair statement. Obviously, you can be wasted in the airport and cause an issue. A great show to actually watch moments that happen is a show that was on in the early 2000s called Airline. It was an A&E show where they followed around different like gate agents with Southwest Airlines, and there's a few occurrences there on them having to deal with drunk passengers and deny them boarding. I will say we have to be fair though, because you mentioned this American story where somebody was drunk on a flight and being unruly. Not even a week after that, there was actually a Delta flight where passengers were forced to subdue an unruly passenger who turned out to be an off-duty flight attendant who actually worked
Oh
for the
no.
airline. Uh,
Oh no.
yeah, as of right now, they're still doing an internal investigation and nothing's been released. But other people on the flight said they yelled, "Stay down, man, stay down." And the off duty flight attendant was yelling, help me, Jesus, somebody help me, somebody help me. And, it's kind of unclear if they were having some sort of mental breakdown, medical episode, or they were under the influence of alcohol. So, it definitely adds to that conversation of if we should be serving alcohol on planes, but then should we have bars in airports? It's a big source of revenue for the airports too. So
Oh yeah, they make a killing off of it. You'd see a lot of those restaurants, I think, just close in airports if they weren't allowed to serve alcohol.
I would
Um, I
agree.
I think it's, and you can't. There's no way to really limit it either, because you can always say, oh well, you can only serve somebody one or two drinks, but then you end up somewhere like O'Hare or Minneapolis, St. Paul, JFK, and there's 17 bars they can hit on their way to their gate.
Right. I
So
mean, even thinking about a small airport like just that East Terminal here in St. Louis, where it's only Southwest Airlines, I believe there's like a Chili's and an Applebee's. So there's two right off the bat. Plus, there's one that's just a bar. Plus, you have lounges that are accessible. And those lounges
right.
include free alcohol if you have the access to them.
Right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I don't know. I know that they had that ban on booze and coach because of unruliness. That was kind of like a hot topic. So I thought this was funny because you can't even, people are going to be people, and if you
Right.
have alcohol available in the airports, they're going to get smashed before their flight, and it's just going to be worse if they can't serve it on the plane because they know they've got to get it all in their system at once before they take off.
Yeah, they're going to power drink and make sure that they're under the influence. And a lot
Yeah.
of these people are people who are probably terrified of flying in the first
Yes.
place.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like that's what was happening with this guy, is because of just uh, from how the article reads, it just seems like he was very cooperative about everything. He just got really sick, and then he got escorted off and got sick again. And so a lot of people get really nervous if they don't fly a lot, or maybe they just don't like flying. So yeah, that's the only thing I had for air. I think the next thing that I've got here is on cruises, if you want to jump into that.
Yeah, we can definitely go ahead and jump into cruises. What's the first thing you have?
Actually some good news about the Caribbean countries. CDC has lowered its travel advisories for several of these Caribbean countries. Basically, it looks like they lowered it to the level 1 classification, which is huge because that's the lowest risk level for COVID that you can have on the CDC scale as of right now, for just since vaccines have been rolling out. So these countries carry a recommendation to make sure you are fully vaccinated. The newest level 1 lowest risk Caribbean destinations include Saba and the British Virgin Islands as of June 14th. So this is all within probably the last week or so. Anguilla, Antigua, Dominica, St. Bart's, Turks, Caicos. I mean, there's a lot that have been downgraded to that level 1. And then the majority of the remaining Caribbean countries are classified as level 2. So not even high risk at this time, just a moderate risk. So unvaccinated travelers will not be allowed to enter Anguilla until after July 1st. So there are still some things in place if you are not vaccinated. So just keep that in mind, that just because these are open and there's more travel advisories, that you may not qualify for it based on whatever your choices are.
Yeah, and I think I want to play into that's kind of bringing on these next two articles that I have here. And the first is that Royal Caribbean has actually reversed their vaccine requirement for any cruise departing from Texas or Florida. So anywhere else that they're departing from that Royal Caribbean happens to operate, they still are requiring vaccines. They are not required departing out of Florida or Texas, but they are highly recommended, as they are going to be in most places. And in addition to that, Florida has actually been granted a preliminary injunction against CDC cruise restrictions.
Interesting.
a federal judge on Friday sided with the state, saying that it unfairly targeted the cruise industry and would hurt them more than it would hurt any other type of business.
Wow. I mean, I think that's probably fair. I mean, that's a fair statement.
Yeah.
Whether it's right or wrong, it's definitely fair that it is going to hurt them directly, because I I think that's kind of a silly statement for them to say, just because it's literally targeting the cruise industry, but then their defense is, well, it's going to hurt the cruise industry. Well, yeah, that's
Right. I think it's worth mentioning that this is a temporary injunction. It is one federal judge's opinion. It will probably be appealed, and I would not be surprised to see this reversed. But as of right now, I think that's a big reason that Royal Caribbean dropped their vaccine requirements in Florida, because the way that this is written, they're not allowed to require them.
I mean, yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah. They say as early as next month is when it'll actually allow cruise lines to be operating in and out of the ports of Florida. And that Florida cruise port is actually the most lucrative cruise port in the world.
Oh, wow.
So for these for these cruise lines, that is a ton of money being opened back up for them. So we'll just have to see here what the airlines or what the cruise lines. I'm so used to talking about air travel. What these cruise lines decide to do.
Yeah, that actually so the other thing I had was on Expedia cruises. Obviously with people doing a lot of their own cruise booking themselves, just with how the ease of it. I guess Expedia is taking a jump here to turn their cruise portion into a kind of a full service leisure travel agency that's focused on technology, so that people are able to kind of see what they're getting before they book it. I know personally that is one of the biggest turnoffs for me with cruises, is that I feel like it's such a huge money sink, and you really don't get a whole picture of what you're getting for that. So what they're doing is they're going to be rolling out a new info site that is supposed to be intended to give the cruise shoppers information about what's on board the ships, what's included in the cost, and the types of experience they can have at each port.
It's interesting. They actually reached out to me about a position in that department doing that. But yeah, that's important, because I think a lot of people that have never cruised before don't necessarily understand that a lot of the cruises that leave Florida or Texas, if you're somebody who's going to a destination to try to see more of that destination and see new places, you're not going to get that on those types of cruises. Royal Caribbean, Carnival, that kind of cruise line, you need to be there because you enjoy being on the boat, because
Right.
you don't get a ton of time in each port, and you're not really going to be able to explore away from a group that you're going with a lot of the time. And if you don't know that, you might be really disappointed.
Yeah, and actually, I was just talking about this last week with the missus about that. Just how neither of us are really attracted to cruises because of that reason right there. It's I mean, a lot of them you're literally just going to be on a ship for 5 days, and in those 5 days you could have seen so many other things, you could have done so many cool things instead of being on a ship. I understand that some people love cruises. It's just I haven't been on one, and I don't really see the only ones I'd go on are ones that are interactive, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to take that type of cruise and you like gambling and you like just being out in the sun, it's basically like staying in an all-inclusive resort that's on the water. If you're the type of person that likes being at an all-inclusive resort where you're not going to go see anything, and that's your break, then
you have like except you have like 100 roommates that all are like within a foot from you, and you're stuck on this. You like can't escape them.
Yeah, I'd prefer the resort too.
That's the senior vice president, Greg Schultz, said that they're focusing on cruise in a big way over at Expedia, and that it's a long-term focus. They want to be the leader in the digital experience and content, and also the leader in supply and transparent pricing. So that right there, the transparent pricing, that's another reason why cruises have always been a huge turnoff to me. I couldn't tell you how many times I've been looking at cruises, and it's like finding a needle in a haystack just to find out how much it would cost at a baseline, which is ridiculous to me that we still operate like that. That is a very 90s, early 2000s way of advertising to people, of like big shiny lights and explosions, and then you come have a great time, and people aren't like that now. They want to know what they're getting. They want to know the value that they're receiving for their hard-earned money. So I think this is a great sign for Expedia Cruises that they're doing this and want to be very transparent, kind of about everything about the cruise booking process.
I would agree. And I agree with you. I mean, I don't think a cruise is something that I would focus on doing. Now, I will say if a cruise line reached out to us and wanted to sponsor us and wanted to take us on a fam trip on your cruise, we would gladly participate.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't turn down free trips. You could send me to literally anywhere and I'll go.
Fargo, North Dakota.
I mean, I'll go. I'll find something to do.
Fair
There's
enough.
got to be something.
I'd say Flint, Michigan, but you're already basically there.
Yep, I spent a lot of time there already.
Yeah. All right. Well, that is all I have for cruises. Was that it for you?
Yeah. Yep.
Cool. Then let's move on to the next thing, which is hotels. Big news in the hotel industry, actually, and this is something that's kind of been in the works over the last year, and that is Blackstone and Starwood Capital, which are the companies that own Marriott, have actually purchased Extended Stay America for $6 billion.
Wow.
So Extended Stay America was one of the few kind of independently operated still extended stay hotel chains. So now if you want to stand in an extended stay hotel, for the most part, you're going to be looking at one of the bigger operators, but that's good because you're going to be able to get your rewards points.
Yeah, that is one of the benefits of that. Now the only downside is if they hike their prices up like $30 a night for their room, then your reward points probably aren't really making you the best value out of that.
Right. And the company said they made a cash offer to Starwood of $19.50 per share. That represents a premium of 15.1%. So they did pay up a little bit to get the company. But the reason for the investment was to increase their extended stay brand because they saw how many people were still using that during the pandemic.
Oh, I'm sure.
And it's definitely a pandemic safe hold to have those extended stay hotels where people are either staying there for long corporate outings or, even more common in those lower cost extended stays, living in those properties because of whatever reason, whether it be credit issues or homelessness, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I just have one thing on hotel. I saw that the Chicago's Palmer House, which is a Hilton property, has reopened. This was a year-long COVID-related closure.
Wow.
Over 1,600 rooms at this property, and it is celebrating its 150th anniversary this year. It underwent a $2.2 million renovation during the downtime, so they did not waste time during the pandemic. They were just putting money back into it. So among the hotel's updates, a new indoor pool, which sits below a vaulted glass ceiling. So Palmer House was already a very nice property, very large, obviously very old. It's probably, I would assume, probably one of the oldest there. And they have also debuted a grab-and-go food and beverage concept called Lockwood Express, which offers basically the menu on it. It's pastries, coffee, warm meals, cocktails, and more. So kind of also getting away from necessarily having to dine in, which I think is good that they're giving the option. So it's they're commemorating its reopening with special booking offers. The Bertha Palmer Experience long-term stay package, it starts at $150,000 per month.
Mm-hmm.
And includes a stay in the penthouse suite, black car service, a dining and cocktail credit, a dedicated butler, and more. I would wonder what the butler is going to be doing to me for $150,000 a month, or for me. I meant for me.
Oh,
and then you can also add on a splash package. So it's basically a 150-minute spa treatment. It looks like they're doing that to the first 150 guests. So reopening rates starting at $189 a night. So actually not too bad, not bad for their regular rates.
So what's interesting is I've stayed at the Palmer House before. It's actually one of the nicest hotels in Chicago, and for where it's at, it's very reasonably priced.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny that it says they're starting at $189 though, because they have rooms available this week actually at $169. So it looks like that's gone down even since then. But
yeah,
a renovation was needed. It was getting older. That building it was built at the turn of the century, so it is definitely one of the oldest hotels. And I would say it's probably one of the nicest hotels in Chicago. So, big deal for them to be reopening. I know when I was doing corporate travel, I had clients who would only stay there and would not
Yep.
stay anywhere else.
Me too.
So it was definitely worth it. And since we're talking about Chicago, and it is kind of a big tourist destination here in the U.S., I think it's worth mentioning that the Navy Pier has reopened.
Yeah, I actually have a friend there right now, today that I was talking to. She was going out there, and I think she might have actually been staying at the Palmer House. I don't know. I'll have to check the news here after we're done, but yeah, I had just gotten a text saying that someone was shot in one of the hotels that the hotel that she was supposed to be staying in.
Oh boy.
And the restaurant, which is a suit and tie kind of restaurant, they will not let you in unless you are basically wearing a tuxedo. So they went to go check in and get changed, and SWAT was there. So yeah, I'm hoping that everything's good and they're able to get in there. I'm curious at which property that was.
Well,
but-
staying on the more positive news.
Yeah. So anyway, great hotel that just opened up.
And Navy Pier, obviously, if you've never been to Chicago, it's one of the premier destinations. There's a lot of stuff to do right there on the lakefront on Lake Michigan, and it was closed for all of 2020. The first time, I believe, in Navy Pier's history that it was fully closed for an entire tourist season. So big deal that it's back open and ready to go.
Yeah, that's great to hear.
All right. Well, honestly, that's all the news I think I have.
Okay, I just have one last thing. I saved the best for last. This is by Travel Weekly, and it is titled "Where Can Americans Travel in Europe? A Country by Country Guide." So this, I'm going to make sure that we have a link to this because this was updated as of June 18th, so just 2 days ago, and it has basically any kind of restriction or need to know on a country by country basis if you are an American trying to get into Europe. So it's very, very well written. Travel to Albania, Austria, Croatia. I mean, throw a country at me. I'll pull up the restrictions.
I don't know.
All right, we'll go with Spain. All right, so Spain opened to vaccinated Americans June 7th. Arrivals must have 2 doses of blah blah blah, or you have to be vaccinated before arrival. Pre-arrival form with a QR code is required, and if in most cases unvaccinated adults are not able to enter Spain for tourism. There are COVID restrictions in place throughout the country and can vary by the region. That's all they have for Spain. So very short, sweet, what you need to be able to get in. So very, very short and sweet. And they have that for basically every country, almost every country, or at least a lot of the major countries over in Europe.
That's incredibly useful to have right now because there are still varying restrictions in different countries. So it's worth knowing where you can go. I know that there's certain countries that are even restricting people from specific states in the US. So it's definitely worth checking that out. And at the last minute here, I have a little bit of cruise news that actually just came across my desktop here. And that is that the first trial cruise that was scheduled to sail out of Florida is setting cruise from Miami this evening. It is Royal Caribbean's Freedom of the Seas, and it is testing their new COVID-19 safety measures. There will be about 600 employee volunteers on board, and it'll just be those employee volunteers on this particular cruise. There won't be any paying passengers. It looks like they can basically, a ship may either opt to perform a trial cruise or agree to set sail with a fully vaccinated passengers and crew, 95% for both groups. So I guess this is just to see if they see any COVID cases come from this particular sailing.
Yeah, fingers crossed that they don't, obviously.
Right on. Well, I guess
that's all I had. That wraps it up, I think.
Yeah, that is going to wrap it up. So I appreciate you guys listening. We will try to put these out more regularly. I feel like we say that like every third podcast.
Yeah, probably record. Like every podcast.
Probably. But we're going to do better. But anyway, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a like on the YouTube video. If you're listening on Anchor, go ahead and go to that support button and you can support us there. Also, if you want to leave us a question, you can use that same Anchor page to leave us a voice message and we will answer it on the air. But for me, that's all I have for now. So I want to thank you guys for watching and listening, and we will see you on the next one.
All right, thanks.